All right, here we go. I'm gonna use up the rest of the blackberry juice. It's been 2 days. It's a little bubbly because I shook it up because it was starting to separate. And so, I'm not for sure what was separating, but it was. And anyway, I found 2 recipes. I am going to make a blackberry jalapeno jelly and a blackberry syrup. So the first one I'm gonna do is the jalapeno jelly. I am growing jalapenos this year, but it's the beginning of the season. They're not ready at all. So I went to the grocery store and got 2 jalapenos. The recipe calls for like 1 red and 1 green. My store only had loose greens. So I think red just means they've been like on the vine longer and maybe they're a little spicier, or maybe it's just for, look's sake. I'm not for sure. So that, and then 3.5 cups sugar, and then another 1/2 cup of sugar with a box of Sure Gel. So I mixed those 2 together. The recipe called to mix the 1/2 cup sugar with the pectin. I had never heard of that until yesterday. I was watching several canning videos where the canners mixed sugar with the pectin before they put it into the pot. So I'm not for sure why they do that, but there has to be a reason because a lot of canners are doing that. So the recipe is 4 cups of blackberry juice. You mix the 4 cups of blackberry juice, the 1/2 cup of sugar and pectin, 2 of these minced, and then you bring, I'm sorry, these are jalapenos, and you bring those to a rolling boil. You let it rolling boil for 1 minute, and then you add the 3.5 cup sugar and bring it back to a rolling boil. And once it reaches that rolling boil, the second time you boil it for 1 more minute, and then your mixture is ready. Pretty typical for most jelly recipes. And I have gloves here because, trust me, always wear gloves when you're cutting up jalapenos. I'm gonna hand cut these. I broke my blender and I just haven't bought a new one. So I'm gonna mince these by hand, and you wanna wear gloves. You may think they're mild jalapenos. I don't know if they're mild or not. I haven't tasted them, but no matter what, these oils will get on your hands and you will be regretting. And you might not feel it right away, but an hour from now, 2 hours from now, tomorrow, you will be deeply regretting it. So always wear gloves. And I have tons of gloves, especially because of the pandemic. So I'm sure you have gloves handy in your kitchen. If not, cut it up in a food processor where you're not touching it whatsoever. So let me get started mincing these up. I've already sanitized my jars. This recipe is supposed to make 4.5 pint jars, or I'm sorry, 4.5 pint jars. So I have 5 jars processing. For that, we'll just see how much liquid is left, because you don't want to like fill a jar half full and then like you'll have to put that in the refrigerator. You shouldn't process shelf stable a jar that's only half full, but that's okay. If I have some left over, perfect for the fridge. That way I can taste test it without having to open a bottle. A jar. Let me get these minced up and we will get this mixture started. All right, so we have the blackberry juice, 4 cups of blackberry juice, the box of pectin, the 1/2 cup of sugar, the 2 jalapenos minced up, and I added a tablespoon of lemon juice. I'm just trying to see if I can maybe lighten up my blackberry juice, because I know when I made the jelly it was practically black. So sometimes the lemon juice will lighten up colors, and it doesn't hurt because it does help with the pectin. And then I'm going ahead and doing that butter method again. Seems to be a lot of canners do the 1/2 teaspoon of butter to prevent foaming, and blackberry juice will definitely foam. So anyway, so you stir occasionally until it gets close to the boil. Once it's boiling, for that 1 minute, you definitely want to stir constantly, and then once you add the rest of the sugar, you pretty much want to stir constantly, but it will take about 3 or 4 minutes, maybe even 5, to get up to that boiling point. All right, it's become the first rolling boil for a minute, so I add the rest of the sugar, and definitely have everything measured out ahead of time, because once everything comes to a rolling boil, you ain't gonna have time to measure everything out. So now I stir this in, and then once it comes back to a rolling boil, which will take a couple minutes, time it for another minute, and then your mixture is done, ready to ladle into the jars. And then we're gonna water bath can it for 10 minutes. So this recipe says it should make around 4 jars. I kind of think it's gonna make more than that, because this is 4 cups of liquid. So, because like a pint jar is basically 1 cup. So it's 4 cups liquid, 4 cups sugar. Yeah, I bet it makes six jars. We'll see. I always process a couple extra jars. Sterilize. When I mentioned it in a previous video where I make extra jars, I said that wrong. All I mean is, like, if the recipe says it will can 5 jars, well then I'll pull 7 jars, because that way I have a jar ready if there's more liquid. You know, it just depends how long you boil it, and if you boil it longer, you're gonna have less liquid. So, all right, it's pretty dark. It's blackberry. All right, it actually made 6 jars, and there's still some mixture left. I should have realized. Most any jelly recipe that I've done with 4 cups of liquid and 4 cups of sugar, it's made 6 to 7 jars. So now I'm gonna wipe. Remember, you need to wipe this down, so if there's any jelly, it won't prevent the spill. And then I got my lids and rims and tighten those up, and then put them in the water bath. Once the water bath comes back to boiling, you process it for 10 minutes. All right, there's a little left in the pan, so I'm gonna do a quick taste test. So I have made a jalapeno jelly before. I have a video from like 3 years ago. So I do like a little spice, and I was happy when I saw that blackberry jalapeno recipe. So this type of jelly, I imagine putting on top of cream cheese, on brie. I love brie. So kind of like, you know, a jelly that will go with like cream cheese and wine. So let's see. That's good. And just a little bit of jalapeno. It's not too spicy at all, but you still get a little kick. That's really good. I'm just glad I found a recipe that I will actually enjoy to use up the rest of the blackberry juice that I had left over. So it is setting in the bottom of the pan. Hopefully that means it'll also set in the jars. Every time I do jelly, first couple times I made jelly, I had no issue. So I didn't realize jelly setting was an issue in the canning world. And so I have had one batch of jelly. I think it was my clover jelly that did not set. And so now I'm all paranoid every time I make jelly. Hopefully this will work, because I really don't want syrup. I'm making syrup later. So I really want this to set, because I think it'll be perfect for cream cheese. All right, while my jalapeno jelly is water bathing, I'm gonna start on the second recipe I'm doing. It's just the simple blackberry syrup. 3 cups of blackberry juice, which is perfect because this is like 3.5 cups. 2.5 cups of sugar, 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. You can use the bottled lemon juice. 2 teaspoons pectin. I did actually have one of these bottles. A box of pectin, I think, is around 6 teaspoons or tablespoons. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But I got this for when for recipes like this. You don't want a whole box of pectin because you don't want to make jelly. This is syrup. So it is a little bit of pectin to make it thicker, so it's not exactly water. So you bring the juice, the sugar, the lemon to a boil for 3 minutes, and then you stir in the pectin and boil for 1 more minute, and then you water bath them for 10 minutes pints, 15 minutes for quarts. I am doing pints. I like the little jars. I have a bunch of jelly jars to use. So Definitely not as much sugar, but again, it's 3 cups instead of my last recipe was 4, which is perfect because that's pretty much all I have left. I'm gonna get that started. Yeah, blackberry juice, using it all up. All right, 3 cups of the blackberry juice, 2.5 cups sugar, and a tablespoon of lemon juice. So you bring this to a boil, and then once it's at a rolling boil, boil it for 3 minutes, and then you add the pectin, which I already measured out. It was 2 teaspoons, and then you add that and boil for 1 more minute. So while it's getting ready to boil, you don't have to stir the whole time. You want to stir until all the sugar is dissolved, and then you can like step away for a minute. But once it starts bubbling, you pretty much want to stir constantly. But I see my sugar is still dissolving, so. Okay, that only made 4 jars of syrup, which is good. Now I'm gonna wipe down the rims again, put the lids on, and water bath it for 10 minutes. All right, taste testing the syrup. It's really good. It tastes like blackberry syrup. Just remember, these were frozen blackberries from last year. So freezing blackberries, definitely you don't lose the flavor. That's really, really good. So I wasn't planning on making blackberry syrup, but I thought it out and I will actually use it. We like to make blackberry ice cream. I have a Cuisinart ice cream maker. So you just, I don't know the exact recipe off the top of my head, but you put like, a cup of the blackberry syrup with the ice cream after, once it's almost to the frozen stage. You add it like in the last 5 minutes of the churning. It makes it really, really good. And then I eat a lot of waffles, so this will be good on waffles. So, and then I also read like you can like put a spoonful in lemonade to make like a blackberry lemonade. That sounds really good. So that's why I decided to go ahead and make syrup with the blackberry juice. So anyway, I'm not gonna end this yet. I'll do a clip at the end to make sure the jalapeno jelly set and see what the syrup looks like. It should be a little thicker than water, but we don't want it as thick as jelly. That's why we only added 2 teaspoons of pectin. All right, these are the 6 jars of the blackberry jalapeno jelly, and they did set, and this is only after 2 hours. They're still warm, and they all sealed. So that makes me happy. And then over here is the syrup, and it needs to be liquidy, and it is. So that makes me happy. And those, let me double check, those all set too. So another successful canning day.